Welcome.
Welcome,
Se-
season two of the Fatal Vision podcast
Season 2, episode 1.
has begun.
Well, holy shit. We didn't even plan that.
No, and first things first, we got to get the awkward shit out of the way, right?
Oh my God, dude. Um, well, it's been a long time since we recorded. We got hit with illness,
Yeah. Um. Oh, and
sleepless
also
nights.
we were encouraged by one of our close confidants to take a lot of time off to celebrate the end of season one. Um, to take at least the summer off, in fact,
Yeah,
but.
we thought about it.
Yeah, we took another week and then here we are. It's Friday night, um, June 20th, and we're back. The new season. We've with the heavy lift. We're here.
We're back, man. Another one-star review just came in.
Yeah, right before we hit record.
So we're under fire, but we
Yeah.
press on. Um,
I'm not worried about it.
I'm reluctant to even engage
No,
critique.
because it's so explosive in terms of the content.
Yeah, yeah,
It did say we sounded like awkward in the first episode,
yeah.
and she was willing to go on, but then our sort of notorious early political um opinions that have upset so many people or so many times upset her, and
Well, I
she,
think there are
yeah,
different ways of approaching this. So we have a
yeah.
friend, he's become our friend and our email correspondent, Kevin. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
top tier friend.
top tier, great guy, Notre Dame grad. He, in his comment, said that we had a little blind spot for connecting things to the president, and uh, I agreed with him. Not that it was a blind spot, but I could just see how one could reach that conclusion, especially in the early episodes. But Kevin said that, and then he continued living his life and listening to the podcast and thinking about McDonald. But this one star review from tonight just couldn't bear that we had made jokes in episode 2. Now, look,
Well,
we shouldn't
I
even hide it. There was a moment in episode 2 where McDonald is saying something, and you say, "Doesn't that sound a lot like so and so?" And then we go on this riff about how we're not here to reach across the aisle. We were basically satirizing the political paying of lip service to bridge building unity. I think it was clear that yes, we have a point of view, but we're also we're just fucking around.
yeah,
Um,
and also just how you'd find it in so many podcasts where the host will just like shit their pants in fear if one of their guests starts offering a criticism of a president, and then they just don't want to be caught on a hot mic
yeah.
saying something that might help ruin their cross appeal. So we made it a point very early on to sort of make fun of that gutless, you know, wishy-washy thing, and it's just I was amused by it, and we knew when we had those early episodes were just riddled with our political jokes, and we let it all fly in January when we dropped the whole
Yeah.
bundle of episodes, and
We could have gone back in and edited all that out, but we thought it
fuck it.
was clearly uh
I don't give it.
you know, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no, like, so yeah, that's a good explanation. That sort of gives you the overview, and we're still paying the price for it. We're still catching hell for it right now.
I
Um,
gotta say, I feel kind of responsible because I'm the one that made the initial joke.
well, then it wouldn't be you and it wouldn't be us if you hadn't have said what you said, and
Yeah.
then it
You
wouldn't be
think
any
well of
good.
me. You think I'm a good guy.
No, I think, to be perfectly honest, you take these a lot harder than me.
Okay.
Uh, you know, sometimes. Like
Well,
there was the other night where
you had a
we were
meltdown. Yeah.
I fucking melted down on air because the criticism was so inco especially dumb in terms of how other people should go to listen to morally indefensible instead, and it's like, yeah, they should. If you haven't heard it, that should be the first place you go. And anyway, I just think it's sort of doesn't I don't take it as a harsh criticism that people think it's too much for them, or that it's that but I think that I haven't heard the word hate applied to me in a long time,
I'm
and
glad
this
we're
is
talking
that's
about this, man,
yeah,
because we got that review, a 5-star review, where the fellow said that the audience gets to know us alongside the characters in the book. So we become part of their lives. And I think you're modeling admirable vulnerability here. We're letting people into our lives and what we
yeah.
think and what we go through. James, I don't think you're a hateful guy at all.
No, I've never found you to be hateful either. So
In fact, when you had gone on your first date with your wife, the woman who became your wife, I saw her in line at Starbucks and I went up to her and I said, "Hey, I hear you went out with my boy."
yeah,
And I mispronounced her name. And I said, he's got the biggest heart of anyone.
I know.
That
That's
was what year? 2016?
2017.
2017. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah,
would it
yeah, because I remember you sent her a text in November of 16.
That was when we started. That was after so it was, maybe it wasn't the end of 16. Maybe, yeah, we know, but then this was all revealed in Easter of 2017.
That I had done that?
Well, the heart comment you did not tell me. She told me.
I was too ashamed of
Yeah. Well, it
how
was
weak
important. It
that
was
would make me
important.
sound.
Yeah. Well, obviously, it was high praise, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
worked out very well.
Well, you've been through a lot in your life, James, and you have a deep understanding of others and sensitivity, and you feel outrage, I think, at the right times and often in response to needless suffering of other
Y-
people.
Yeah, and
So
I think you do too, and. While we're just setting the record straight here, uh, I'm just really grateful that you are as into this as I am, being not the biological son of Joe McGinnis, but
right.
you've become sort of a adopted son in a lot
in
of
the in
ways,
the in
and
the spirit, in the
in the
spirit.
spirit, certainly in spirit, he's with you. So,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
just reflecting on that, like, 'cause my wife what has been finally getting into some of it, and she is praising it, and she's pretty discerning. She doesn't just like things that are stupid or awkward,
Hateful.
hateful, especially. And then I was just reflected that I'm grateful that I have that you're in my life, and not only that you're in my life, that you're willing be to take on this project of someone that is outside of your immediate family. So. Uh, but as we've also said, we've done the done sort of the dress rehearsal for this for like 7 years. We've talked about McDonald nonstop off
Yeah.
the air, which has kind
Yeah.
of made it easy to switch to this format and humble ourselves on a podcast where we open ourselves up to criticism
Yeah. Yeah,
from the
maybe we'll reach a
biggest,
point.
yeah.
Maybe we'll reach a point where we don't address every review we get because there will just be so many.
Oh, no, I mean, like this is all just sort of like I am sitting here now knowing this is an artifact of like I don't know, like Dylan's 1961 recordings or something. Like just like sort of like laughable early shit. And then we're just gonna be so
Uh-huh.
unspeakably huge and famous and recognizable on the street.
Yeah.
Because that's what podcasters are.
So true. So true.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but
And the money especially is what I'm most after.
all the gifts you've been
Yeah.
giving us. Yeah, so it's cool. It's cool. I like I hadn't really thought of the podcast in this way, but I liked what that other reviewer said that you kind of get to know us and why we're talking about this.
If honestly, if someone can make it past episode 7 and they're still here, they're ride or die. Wouldn't you think it's fair to say?
Yeah,
We lay it all out there.
that's when the political conventions are over and we
And,
stop talking about it.
and then I was looking at the transcript that I'm telling stories about my dad at Thanksgiving and like being
Yeah.
a curmudgeon, and we talk about our friend Sam, and we've done a lot of digressions.
Yeah, and I
Um,
understand why some people don't want that to happen.
yeah.
That's okay.
But if you listen to most podcasts, it's 90% dead air.
Well,
Just
so
like,
if this were the,
yeah.
I don't mean this as a political point. I'm just raising this because I recently watched an episode. If this were the Tucker Carlson show, instead of funny digressions about James's holidays, you would instead hear Tucker do commercials where he invites you to buy a gun. So we don't make you do that.
No, we're not yet. But once it's, I mean, when the money's good enough,
Yeah,
it'll be hard to say no.
if any gun dealers, is that what if any gun shops want us
Well,
to?
it was some kind of a special, I must think it's like a 3D printed gun because he says you don't need a background check for it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I haven't looked into it
I have.
personally.
I have.
You have.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, have you walked the streets lately, man? It's a war zone out there, man.
I did actually get I was with my wife and our niece. We took her out to dinner. She's like 11.
Hmm.
And we were just walking back and there was a vagrant on the street, like talking to themselves, and I just knew that I was gonna get like, abuse hurled at me because it's just normal. Like I just attracted. It must be in my quantum field. And
Yeah,
the guy starts shouting about, money or change or whatever, and I just do like the horrible awkward thing where I like look straight ahead, and then he's like, "Yeah, fucking leave it to Beaver, huh?"
wow,
And
holy
it was
shit.
hard. Yeah, I mean, then I was trying to explain to an 11-year-old the reference.
Oh God.
Uh,
Oh
and
God.
I was like, well, yeah, there was this TV show on that was 30 years before I was born. And my understanding is it's about suburban ideal. Anyways, it's so anyway, just that's just all that is just to sort of chew up airtime
Yeah.
and make a point about God, what was the point again, Billy?
That we're not doing ads. Oh, it was about how the
Oh,
streets
oh,
are
about how
unsafe.
dangerous the street. Yeah, so if I had
If
a
you had been
3D
armed.
printed gun, if someone had given me a 3D printed gun in the mail with a background check, I wouldn't have had to put up with that.
Yeah. And that
That's
is what Tucker
Yeah.
wants you to understand. And I'm
Or
not making a
we could,
political point
yeah.
about that.
No,
I'm not commenting on the politics of that. I'm just saying that you don't have to hear ads like that here.
yet. As soon as the following is big enough, we'll make some disclaimer saying, we have made the difficult decision to turn on ads here at the Fatal Vision podcast so that we can continue this important work. I heard that on another podcast recently. Like it's just like a difficult decision, and we had to do it so that Billy and I could quit our jobs and become full-time Fatal Vision researchers.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. It's not even close. So don't worry. We're
I would love to be a full-time Fatal Vision researcher.
it's just the point is that you can pick one little plot of land in this entire mental world and just you can just mine it endlessly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You don't need to be like every other podcast where it's like 45 minutes to explain whatever happened with Jeffrey McDonald case. Like, let's just give a little recap here.
No, we don't do that.
No, no, we don't do that. We don't do that at all.
Um, I want to say before we continue, because we're very excited about part two, chapter one. In the spirit of letting you all get to know us, James, I think that in much the way that Joe McGinnis is a spiritual companion to me, I would just like to reflect back to you that I very much feel that my late father, Bobby Glidden, has made himself known to you in various ways. I'm thinking especially of that moment in the car in Vermont
Hmm.
when the price
Oh,
you
with the
pay,
price you pay, yeah, on Father's
Springsteen,
Day,
when
yeah,
Springsteen came on.
that made it quite. That was it's hard to even put that in words. It's one of those moments where you'll know you'll never be the same again.
Yeah, you said you just under all of a sudden you just understood my father. You understood who he
Yeah,
was.
I know. I remember exactly where we were, coming back from East Dorset.
Yeah.
I hope that's not a violation, but uh, yeah. So no, I know he's ever present as well as your dog Rudy was. When
Yeah,
he
we'll
was
talk
alive.
about Rudy
Yeah.
in another episode.
Okay, sorry. That's it. We're getting too. We're getting
But
too.
I just, if I don't want anyone out there to think we're just like hateful, mean guys
No,
who
but
don't have
I think
love.
if people think that, according to this person, that they read Fatal Vision and then Final Vision, and then they thought the next natural thing for them to do is to go to the Fatal Vision podcast and start listening,
Yeah,
and
and
then they were
then I'm
immediately
screaming at them about
yeah they're immediately confronted with a host who uh without a shred of irony says you're not welcome here.
right.
And I say that part with I obviously irony.
That was a joke.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a joke about it not being a joke. Um, but here we are, you know,
Season two,
season two. The ratings
episode
are
one.
what they are after because we did what we did, and we're pressing on toward our prize anyway.
Yeah, and we're not commenting on anything going on in the world.
No,
Yeah,
why would you?
we have a primary purpose.
Yes, it's to keep reading Fatal Vision and help other people read Fatal Vision.
Yep, that's right. And when anyone anywhere reaches out to read Fatal Vision, I want the Fatal Vision podcast always to be there. And for
And we are,
that,
yeah,
I am responsible.
so am I.
Yeah.
We'll be listening to this for 100 years.
Yeah. I
This
don't
is gonna be
want,
like people are gonna be listening to this in like 500 years, like they look at Saint John of the Cross now, right? Like it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like absolutely elevated
Whoever,
mystic, right?
whoever,
Yeah,
whoever, like the Rowan Williams, who's a theologian we talk about, is 500 years from now, he'll be talking about spirituality as practiced by James and Billy on the
yeah.
Fiddle Vision podcast and gleaning
And,
insight from how they can live their lives.
and the amount of footnotes they'll have to put in to explain all the references, it'll just be like people will be doing doctorates on it.
So they mentioned Sam in this episode. That was Sam Schroeder, who
Yeah.
lived on Allen Street in Billy's house with him and his
Yeah.
mom for years.
Yeah.
Nick
And then there'll be
Lawson.
they'll be stumped on a few things. They'll be stumped on a few things.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So I have love for everybody. I don't want anybody out there in the world to suffer because of something I say. Um,
Well, it's the beauty of live podcasting. We don't do takes. We don't cut.
right.
It's raw. It's a bit amateurish, as someone said.
Sophomoric.
Actually, no one's ever said that, but we don't. Yeah, it's we were. This isn't a slick production, and we
See
get what
right
you
there,
get.
right there. The footnote would be the slick was a callback to Bruce Springsteen recording in
Is
1992.
LA Sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
right.
slick LA Sound.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah,
All
and
right.
that's yeah.
Part
Well,
two. T-
let's
t-
part more.
Should we take a moment to? All right. Part two. The hope of the hypocrite.
Okay, let's can we just recap where we left off?
Sure. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, as it, basically it's I don't think you heard me. I said my name's Captain McDonald and I want an attorney. Where we left off. So that was his dark night of the soul. And now, yeah, you please read the take us into part two.
You know what I just realized?
Yeah.
When I throw on a podcast and there's a specific topic I want to hear about, I just fast forward to that stuff.
Well, you see, that's because you're so tech savvy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can't figure out how to do that.
Like I was just feeling bad that these beautiful people like Dottie out there are sitting here listening to our shit when they just want to hear about part two. I'm
Wait,
like,
you actually feel bad for everything we just laid out there? We put it all on the line for them.
you're right, you're right, you're right, you're
And we're
right.
not doing it for us.
You're
We've already
right.
had these conversations. So,
Yeah.
yeah, don't doubt yourself now. But I think
Okay.
actually you should doubt yourself now because it's you're making yourself even more vulnerable for their benefit to see how human and frail you are. And me.
All right. Part two, the hope of the hypocrite. Here's the epigraph. For what is the hope of the hypocrite, though he hath gained when God taketh away his soul? Job 27:8. All right. Well, I mean, your dad wasn't a big Bible guy. Do you know why he might
Well,
have
apparently
gone?
he was because as I may observed offline, every single book of this book, part of this book, has a Job epigraph, except for part five, which is a Jim Blackburn epigraph.
Jim Blackburn,
So,
yeah.
so it's Job and Blackburn. That's it.
All right, let's look back at part one. Yeah, let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above. Yeah. Neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and shadow of death stain it. Yeah, that's Job.
Yeah, it might be worth engaging scripturally with what does the book of Job have to do with fatal vision, other than the obvious.
For what is the hope of the hypocrite, though he
I
hath
mean,
gained when God taketh away his soul? Okay. And then the opening epigraph I was just reading from. Um, As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Huh. Oh yeah, the game when God taketh away his soul. I mean, do you think that's aimed at McDonald for Joe's
Well,
purposes?
let's see. Well, who is so yeah, well how because the part we're going into is the Article 32 hearing and McDonald's initial vindication. So how does that apply to him in
All right,
here?
so he's about to get through the Article 32
Yeah.
unscathed.
So he's about to walk out. I think the section ends with him walking onto the Dick Cavett, walking out off the stage of Dick Cavett to applause. Um,
Okay, so he's about to gain in the
he's
eyes of the
gaining.
world.
Yeah. He's gonna get fame, and there's a lot in here about him writing to different magazines, begging for lots of attention, um, and using the third Article 32, and he's sort of gaming the media cycles and keeping notes about you know. So I think that's kind of where he's willing to turning he's transforming into a new form, a next level narcissist here, I think we're about to observe. And that's part of what's born at the end of part one when he goes through his supposed long conversation with Colette's spirit, where she gives him permission and forgiveness and tells him to get out there and fight.
Yeah. Okay, so this verse of Job is Job asking this question, which essentially is, all right, what good does it do you to act like you're good, act like you're doing great, to get your way for a while, when God knows you,
Yeah.
knows the reality?
So it's about faking it, but
Yeah,
you can't escape the truth.
right, right. Interesting. What is the hope of the hypocrite? And Job is obviously a figure who is known for his unjust suffering.
Oh, and well, we all know, well, not all of us, but perhaps what the what's directed Joe to draw from the book of Job is Kassab's famous comparison of himself to Job or
I
to the
I have I
patience of
have
Job.
I have the patience of Job. So
Yeah,
is this a
yeah.
way? Is this are we supposed to read this epigraph then in the light of what we know Freddie later says, and that this is maybe something Freddie is saying?
Yeah, I think if you could t put Freddie as a Job like
Yeah,
in his passion
yeah,
and in the face of his insane loss. And he does live to see full redemption in the trial and conviction of McDonald against um,
yeah.
seemingly impossible odds.
All right. We've unpacked that. Do you want to take us into the spirit of the
Sure.
text?
Yeah, I'll lead us into this, and then as
Yeah.
always, you can speak from the heart. Chapter 1. 5 minutes after Jeffrey McDonald's mother got home from work on the evening of Monday, April 6th, 1970, her first day back since Monday, February 16th, she received a phone call from a captain at Fort Bragg informing her that her son was being held under armed guard in his BOQ room, a suspect in the murder of his family. Within half an hour, Bob Stern called from New Hope, having just heard the news from Walter Cronkite. He told Dorothy McDonald to hire a civilian lawyer immediately. She said she didn't know any lawyers. He said he would call his corporate attorney and ask him to recommend someone who specialized in criminal work. Half an hour later, he called back to say that Bernard L. Segal of Philadelphia would meet with them at 10 o'clock the next morning. Enter Bernie Segal,
That's
who
James's
will,
own. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, who will remain with us throughout the rest of the book. Um, and here Joe is moving into his incredibly condensed but effective biography of Bernie.
Yep.
At 38, Bernie Siegel was balding and slightly rotund. The
Beautiful work.
hair, yeah, it's very, actually, it's being very great, very kind. The hair he did have was thick and curly and flowed back from the center of his head down his neck, almost to the level of his shoulders. Away from the office, he sometimes wore it in a ponytail. In rimless glasses, he bore more than a passing resemblance to the middle-aged Benjamin Franklin, which for a lawyer in Philadelphia was not necessarily a disadvantage. Siegel had been born and raised in Philadelphia. His father had owned a men's and boys' clothing store. He had attended the Philadelphia public schools, Temple University, and the law school of the University of Pennsylvania. In the early 1960s, working with the American Civil Liberties Union, he had been active in black voter registration projects in the South and spoke often of how he had once spent 3 days in the Pascagoula, Mississippi jail. More recently, Siegel had become well known, some would have said notorious, for his defense of war protesters, draft resistors, and military deserters. In addition, he had made something of a specialty of representing persons charged with violations of narcotics laws. He was, in fact, a staunch defender of the very types for whom Jeffrey MacDonald reserved the most scorn. So what do we make of that, Bill? MacDonald holds the most scorn for these protesters and draft resistors and
Yeah, well,
deserters.
he clearly does. I mean, my main reaction is just, um,
He clearly does, based on his voice of Jeff stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I'm a fairly right wing guy.
Yeah. What
Um,
he was desperate to go to Vietnam.
yeah. He was again secretly begging for it against his wife's wishes and her knowledge.
All right, let's more on Bernie here. Politically, his leanings were toward the left, capital L. Socially, his sympathies lay with the counterculture. Okay, so this is all noteworthy because, Jeff is basically claiming he was murdered, or that his family was murdered by the
Yeah.
counterculture. Married with three young children of his own, Siegel seemed at first an odd choice as defense counsel for a Green Beret officer who had been accused of murdering his own family and who had blamed drug abusers for the crime. Jeffrey McDonald's mother, however, was acting on short notice under great pressure with guidance from only one friend. On the surface, it seemed no less odd that Segal would have been willing to take the case. The four intruders, had they been arrested and charged, would have been far more typical clients for Bernie Segal than was a Princeton educated Green Beret doctor, the personification of the establishment ideal which Segal had so frequently challenged. Bernie Segal, however, in addition to his other characteristics, possessed a forceful, flamboyant personality and considered the practice of criminal law to be at least as much theatrical art as judicial science. The limelight energized him. He did not shun publicity. He was at ease with an entourage, and he had always been at his best on center stage. The lure of a case which had already made national headlines was powerful. Besides, like so many others who had first read or heard the horrid details back in February, Bernie Siegel had been affected on a personal level by the McDonald murders. Okay. From the start, he said, the story evoked a whole rush of very painful feelings. I can remember actually shuddering when I read about it the first time. My own children were only a little older than Jeff's, twin daughters, 7, and a son, 5 at the time. So, of course, I responded as a father to the very special tragedy of the death of a child, that there was so much that they now would never have a chance to experience. Then there was the ugliness of the Manson syndrome. Here it was again 6 months later. From working with many of my clients, I was extremely familiar with LSD, and I remember saying, God damn the acid, God damn the acid, a drug that could unleash that sort of evil. Not long afterwards, I saw a little squib in the Philadelphia Bulletin about the Alabama State Police stopping 2 men and a woman in a van on suspicion of involvement in the McDonald killings. And I then began feeling, oh God, now they're going to stop every freak and long-haired American traveling in a group of more than one. I began to feel resentment that this would open the door to even more repressive police behavior in America at a time when I was fighting against that sort of thing every day. He is a complex character. In a very short space, Joe has managed to capture that. He's
Yes,
quite vivid to
he does. He
us
comes
here.
through.
Yeah.
He's coming through very clear
Why
in
don't you
all
go
of his
ahead?
complexity. All right. And I just it's just a quick sidebar that he's all these principled things and sit-ins or jail and fighting against police repression and from this day forward he will be focused only on de defending Jeffrey McDonald. So that's interesting to me, and I want to do a little research, see if he ever kept up with any of his activism or his trying to make the country a better place for people. Anyway, then on the evening of April 6th, Bernie Segal received a call from a former ACLU colleague named John Ballard of the Philadelphia law firm of Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, a conservative Quaker-oriented business law firm, Siegel said, but one with a social conscience. As general counsel to the University of Pennsylvania, Ballard had referred a case to Siegel 2 years earlier. That one, also a triple homicide, involving a Penn student who, having been ejected from a fraternity Christmas party, had drunkenly poured gasoline on a paper mache snowman and had set the fraternity house ablaze. 3 students had died, but Siegel had succeeded in having the charge reduced to manslaughter, and his client had served only a short prison sentence. This is, of course, the case that Joe covered for the Inquirer or the Bulletin as a reporter and had actually met Siegel before during those years.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah, so that's when Joe was brought into the project, Siegel had said, "Oh, I remember him from Philadelphia." And the first thing that Jeff said to Joe was, "Oh, I understand from Bernie that you're a bit of an expert on triple homicides." That was his disarming, charming quip, and it was referring to this case, which was couldn't be more different than what
Mm,
Jeff did. But
mm.
anyway, now John Ballard said he was calling on behalf of a corporate client from New Hope, one Robert Stern, whose godson, this was not technically true, but the close relationship implied by such a term had existed since Jeffrey MacDonald's early childhood, was the Green Beret officer who had just been held as a suspect in the murders of his wife and daughters at Fort Bragg. Bernie Siegel said yes, of course he would try to be of service. You must understand, Siegel said, prior to my meeting with his mother on April 7th, in fact, during the meeting and even after the meeting, I had every reason to believe that Jeffrey MacDonald was guilty of those murders. The police only arrest the obviously guilty. They don't know how to catch the others. That's why the solution rate on major crimes is so low. So my thinking all through that initial period was he probably did it. But you must remember also that at the start of any criminal case, the call comes in and it's like the alarm going off at the firehouse. At first, you're just running to the fire. You're responding to an emergency. Feelings about guilt or innocence, about the client as an individual, come later if they're going to come at all. I must say, at the meeting on April 7th, I was very impressed by Mrs. MacDonald. She was quite obviously upset, but she showed a remarkable sense of poise and presence. She was handling the crisis beautifully. I liked her very much right away, and of course I agreed to see what I could do. There's a section break here, a little line. What is that line called, Billy?
What line? Section
Oh,
break?
maybe it's not in your edition. Never mind.
No, I don't have it. I have an original edition.
Jeez, so many editions. So anyway, obviously this is all said to Joe later by Bernie when they're working together. All this Siegel said, Siegel said, Siegel said.
When did it did is Bernie Segal dead now?
Yes.
Um, when did he die?
Um, let's pull out our little smartphones and look it up. I would say 2005 is my guess.
Um, did he feel hatred for Joe?
That's a good question.
Because I know Wade Smith did not.
No, Wade actually was kind enough to speak at the memorial for my dad.
Right. Huh.
Um,
I think
so
James is on his phone right now. I
sorry,
can't.
I'm trying to look up when Bernie Siegel died. This is a slog because there's so many other Bernie Siegels apparently, even other lawyers from Philadelphia. Isn't that fucked up? Uh,
I'm just gonna keep going, man.
yeah, please just take it up. I'll tell you later.
Yeah, the first thing Siegel did was to call Fort
Uh,
Bragg. Oh, you
2011. 2011. Sorry, 2011.
he missed out on Jimmy Britt. What a shame.
Yeah.
The first thing Siegel did was to call Fort Bragg. He was able to speak to Jeffrey McDonald early on the afternoon of April 7th. He explained how he had come to be involved. McDonald said he already had been assigned a military lawyer, a tall, slow-talking Virginian. Are his shoes shined? Bernie Segal asked over the phone. What? McDonald sounded incredulous. Does your book have the question mark exclamation point?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Here he was, all but accused of having murdered his own wife and children. And in his very first conversation with the Philadelphia lawyer who presumably had been hired to set things right, the first question the lawyer asks is about the condition of his other lawyer's shoes. Siegel repeated the question, and this time, he said later, I could almost hear Jeff smiling over the phone. That was when I first knew I had a client who was not only intelligent, but who caught on very quickly. He said no. As a matter of fact, the military lawyer's shoes were kind of scruffy. I said, okay, in that case, trust him. Cooperate with him until I can get down there myself. The point being, you see, that if an army lawyer keeps his shoes shined, it means he's trying to impress the system. And if he was trying to impress the system in that situation, the system being one which had already declared a vested interest just by public announcement of suspicion in seeing his client convicted, then he wasn't going to do Jeff any good. The unshined shoes meant maybe he cared more about being a lawyer. Gotta say,
Yeah.
he sounds like such a fucking puke here.
Bernie. Yeah. He's not coming off very good.
Like, yeah, yeah. So Bernie's just like recounting this to your dad,
Like
like this wise, all-knowing, like
like
mystical,
I just came in like and
mystically
saved just
intuitive. Let me tell
yeah.
you something.
This
If
is how this is how it works in the
so,
army.
that's how it works. If their shoes are shined, you don't trust them.
It's sort of the mythologizing you'd expect for like a fake scene in a movie where, you
Yeah,
know, and then the punchline comes in like, oh, I'm getting it now. Um,
yeah.
and then I do want if while we're on the sort of the stupid quotes that Bernie's offering up here way after the fact is that God damn the acid. God damn the acid. The evil it's unleashed.
Hmm.
Sort of going very hard against his hardcore counterculture cred.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
he cares. Anyway, so Jeff is okay because the JAG lawyer isn't gonna just immediately betray him and do something incredibly unethical to
yeah.
help the system.
Yep, the
So we're
shoes.
already we're already into conspiratorial territory, without question, with Bernie.
Yep.
All right.
Are his shoes shined?
And if he is, then he's a total narc. He's just gonna try to get you convicted. Because then all the generals are gonna think this guy helped us win a PR battle. Um, Here we go. We're gonna get more puke stuff from Bernie here for a few more paragraphs. I'll take us out of this
I didn't remember finding Bernie this annoying and
so
contemptible.
fast, so quick, so quick.
Immediately, like if somebody ever said this to me, I'd be like, You have issues. Like
Yeah,
you're grandiose and narcissistic. You think you know everything.
yeah.
What are
Well,
you
he
talking
wants.
about? This
Oh,
guy
yeah,
with shine shoes might just like his shoes
yeah.
looking a
It's
certain
not. It's
way.
not. It's not accurate. It's something. But he's clearly possessed a charisma that McDonald responded to right away,
Let me ask you something,
and
James. At your sales job, your manager, does he unbutton the top button and on his button down?
uh, uh wait, what?
Does your boss at your sales job unbutton the top button of his button down?
Oh, you can sort of hear me smiling over the microphone. Yes.
He
As a matter
does?
of fact, he does. Yes.
That's a real salesman.
Yeah. Thank
That's a
you. He's not
real
trying to
sa-
impress the system.
he's not and he's too busy getting out the door to button all the way up. And he knows
That's a good point.
he's gonna sweat so much while he's out there pounding pavement that buttoning all the way up would just be d deleterious to the quality of the shirt. You just gotta let it hang loose.
Well,
That's a real
look,
salesman, my friend. You
that's a
keep yeah, you
beautiful.
keep that job as long as you can.
I like that, and
Thanks, man. I just came up with
it's
that here.
that was pretty fucking good.
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing I would just say now we're going on. It's like they're sort of telling it now, like the beautiful origin story of this incredible partnership that we're about to witness. Like Bernie and McDonald, their first meeting, their first ever words exchanged,
Yeah.
and so much greatness was to follow.
Yeah, it's
So many,
Springsteen meeting Clarence.
yeah, so many adventures to come.
Stormy night on the boardwalk, the wind whipping up and down the street. Door blows off the bar, towering figure appears in the doorway. Bruce says, "Who's that?"
Yeah, it's good. It's
He
good.
strides forward. "I want to play with you." Yeah, have you heard Bruce tell that story?
No, no, I haven't.
It's really
So
great. Yeah,
I
there,
have to do that.
he the last time he did it was in Buffalo in had to be 2009.
Wow.
The Clarence's final show with the E Street Band. They play "Growing Up," and Bruce does like the story time in the middle. Yeah, I'll send
Oh,
it
I
to you.
love the story time. Yeah, send that to me.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So that's what they're doing here. Like,
They're
oh
doing that. It's just like the most famous bromance in history, Bernie and McDonald.
man.
Um, and like the heroics that Bernie's gonna pull off in this section of the book are just like legendary. And Jeff will never like Bernie can do no wrong in Jeff's eyes up to the conviction in '79. Then it was ends up being a villain.
Bernie becomes a
Um,
villain to Jeff?
after he gets sent back to prison, he was a hero when he gets him out on speedy trial in
Hmm.
'80.
Hmm.
Um, but then he after he's back and they've lost and they didn't get anything anywhere at all with the other motions, double jeopardy or whatever the fuck else. Then he's like, I need to phase Bernie out. I'm
Oh,
still, yeah. He'll start when we get closer to the end of the book. He starts writing to Joe about like, Bernie cost me my life. With that closing argument. So he just becomes one of the Hall of Enemies. From
all
as
right.
but
Well,
no spoiler alert. But this is still in the earliest days. As they're just starting to fall in love. Um,
yeah. Go
On
ahead.
Friday, I'll take us out of this. On Friday, April 10th, Bernie Segal flew to Fort Bragg, where his long hair, he said, made him an object of considerable and not friendly curiosity, and had his first meeting with Jeffrey McDonald.
Okay,
Uh,
they're more
more self,
self-mythologizing.
total
Like,
mythologizing,
so
like,
wait, so people are like, oh, like looking at his hair and like sneering
yeah, I mean, apparently not, it's gonna fit right in with the possible long-haired male who led the assault.
because of his long hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sounds pretty crazy. A bunch of squares down there.
Yeah, made it, and the quotation marks. So this is the quotation marks are around an object of considerable and not friendly curiosity. So,
So it's just showing you that he's taking himself out of his comfort zone of being, and going into the squarest, most rigid, conservative lion's den to meet this super client.
yeah,
I was surprised by the way he looked, Siegel said. I'm not sure what I had been expecting, but he had a nice face.
Oh my
A
God.
Yes, this is getting kind of hot now, almost. Like it's getting almost,
I feel it. Yeah.
yeah, it's a tension, sexual tension. A
In
very
the
nice
book,
open,
not here,
yeah.
not on.
No, 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 no,
Yeah,
no. We'll
yeah.
have to
Thank you.
cut that out. A very nice open face. I liked the man I saw. Jeez. I liked his immediate strong handshake. And the
Jeez.
fourth, yeah, this is getting really, this is like really intense. And the forthright style with which he presented himself. He seemed bright and alert, a man whom it would be a pleasure to know and to work with. The word pleasure came up fast.
Hmm.
Not much of substance. This is back to Joe. Not much of substance other than fee was discussed at the first meeting. I was there mainly to let him know the Marines had landed. Siegel said someone was going to help him. Affirmative steps would be taken.
Oh.
Wow, so it's like, don't worry, the you're in good hands. Flying north that night on the last plane out of Raleigh after a 75-mile drive from Fort Bragg, Siegel formulated the first of those steps. Number one, he said, the Army had to have some evidence. Otherwise, they would never have made their announcement. Number two, a high percentage of persons killed are killed by members of their own family. So, despite the favorable impression he made on me, I remained aware that his guilt was a real possibility. And number three, if he had done it, given the nature of the crime, he had to be a very sick person. So I decided that that was the first area I ought to explore. I didn't explain it in quite that way to him, of course. I believe the way I phrased it when I called him over the weekend was number one, whoever committed these crimes was a very sick person. Number two, I would like to show that it could not have been you because you are free of mental illness or defect. So, number three, I'd like you to come up here for psychiatric examination as soon as I can arrange it because, frankly, your freedom from mental illness is going to be a very positive element in your defense. Privately, of course, I was thinking at that point that I was probably going to have to employ an insanity defense.
Okay, so he that's where we're ending for tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what do we got? Siegel meets him, immediately loves him. He's very
His
attractive.
face is so attractive.
Got a
There's
great
pleasure.
handshake, bright and alert. Pleasure to know. But he also believes him guilty
Very
because
real possibility. He's still hedging.
okay,
And
okay.
he's also really establishing himself for us, the unsuspecting readers, as being completely open and objective towards the possibility of McDonald's guilt. And taking the presumption of guilt because the army must have really good evidence to make an announcement. So when you see his ultimate transformation, it'll be all the more moving
Hmm.
that someone who thought McDonald probably did it ends up becoming, for a decade plus, his most public
Yeah.
defender. He is the original McDonald defender.
Yeah. And to be fair to him, and to be fair to the McDonald defender, to be fair to everybody, to be fair to all of us,
And to God Almighty.
we need to say that the caricature of the McDonald defender that we deploy for comic effect on this show does not have long hair that would be an object of curiosity on a
Nope.
military base. We usually describe the McDonald defender as a jacked, chiseled, smiling, hey man,
That's what he's like.
Yeah, we had, there's some episodes we could look back. You talked about the Cheshire Cat grin and the
Oh,
jewels, the gold
oh,
jewels.
so he's this. Okay, and then I started mixing it up because then we started going after that Evan guy who wrote like six McDonald didn't do it pieces for Slate back in the day.
Yeah.
I
No,
started just
he's
put
a real guy. The
a real
McDonald
man.
defender we bring in is
He's pure caricature.
yeah.
And he's a gift. He's a total gift.
Yeah.
So if you're the McDonald defender, and you are, and I am,
Yeah.
you're reading this chapter, you're thinking this book is turning taking a pretty good turn for me. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot not to like in this chapter for the McDonald defender. Like Bernie's has a pretty good record.
Yeah.
He's a good lawyer.
Socially
Um,
conscious, cares about the
he
vulnerable,
cares about
care,
he cares about the right things. He
cares
does the
about
right
the
things for the
hippies.
right. He civil rights. He's not
Pretty topical stuff though.
so
Be careful.
yeah. Yeah, so we're not even gonna verge on that because even if it's 60 years ago, he could still set off a fucking firestorm.
Yeah.
And but the point being that I'm a McDonald defender. I want to come out with the conclusion that McDonald definitely didn't do it going into this book. And the end of part one was pretty hard on me. But now I'm in part two, and this guy, who I know is going to be McDonald's lawyer for the long haul, was very skeptical of him at first. And then he's going to have this awakening to McDonald's innocence the same way I did as a McDonald defender.
Yeah. Wait till they see him eat a powdered donut.
McDonald eat the powdered donut.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. We get to see Siegel drink a diet soda at one point later.
He leans back in his
He leans
chair,
back, yeah,
sips his Diet Coke.
sips his Diet Coke. No, I'm not even kidding. He literally does that. And when we get to the trial section where Joe was on the scene, he describes Bernie, Mike Malley, and Wade Smith sort of coming up with the opening, and Siegel slips off his shoes and leans back in his chair and cracks open a diet soda to try to start spitballing. So
Yeah.
it's a very common thing for men to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, so
Totally, man.
I'm feeling good about things. I think Jeff's gonna get away with it as a McDonald defender right now, and
Yeah, so looking good. He's got a good lawyer. This lawyer thinks he's guilty right now, but we
he's
know
in good
he's
hands. This lawyer thinks
not
that
thinking that.
Jeff's mom is an impressive woman,
Yeah.
which actually she is.
She is. She's suffering.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, she certainly is, and I can't help but you know Bob Stern, poor guy, did
Yeah.
so much for Jeff.
Yeah, his godson Jeff.
Yeah, yeah, the godson.
Yeah.
That'd be a good story. If you were going to write about a book about McDonald and the Stearns, The Godson would be a pretty good title for it.
A book, maybe like I could ghostwrite a book by Stern.
About McDonald called The
Yeah.
Godson. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
Jeff's version.
Jeff's version.
Jeff the tortured innocent.
I'm digging it.
Bernie is the real enemy now. The way that shoe shine thing was
So corny, right?
oh, it was awful. It was so awful.
Well, it's just sort of coming right from the same cloth as part one ended with McDonald having, walking into the Jag and everybody's jaw dropped and you could hear a pin drop and he said his name.
Oh,
And
he's so
now,
wise. He's just yeah. Sorry. I'm
yeah,
thinking
nothing,
about Bernie
nothing.
still.
Bernie is what I'm saying. So then it's the mythologizing and Bernie, the first meeting and Bernie's sort of presenting himself. It's sort of like a hero's journey, and Bernie is like the wise spiritual elder leading him on McDonald on his quest to freedom.
Yeah.
And he'll be there as a guide to bring the young man into his full. potential.
Right.
So where do we go from here?
Not sure, man. Looks like my camera went off.
Yeah,
Oh well.
that's okay. They can't see us anyways.
Yeah, just went out. Oh well. Figure it out. So where are we left now, James?
Um, well, that leaves us for the rest of the chapter is going to sort of go back and forth between correspondence between Jeff and the Kassabs about his initial coming under suspicion and Freddy's leaping into action. And then we're gonna get to do some fun stuff about Bernie taking Jeff into these early psychiatric examinations and Bernie coming to the Bernie Bernie's resolve around Jeff's innocence solidifying into fact. So we have a fun road ahead for the next recording for episode 2 of season 2.
I love that, man. I love that for
Yeah,
you. I love that for me.
I love that for us. I love that for all of us.
It's very important to me. Um, all right, what are your plans for the weekend, man? You gonna go to Dunkin' tomorrow?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go to Dunkin' tomorrow. There's no question. How
Let
about
me ask
you?
you something, man. The Dunkin' you go to,
Okay.
the guy at the register, does he wear his Dunkin' visor backwards?
What?
If he wears his visor backwards, he's making you that good coffee because he's not worried about appearances. He's worried about the work.
Oh man. Now that you mention it, he does, and you can hear me smiling over the microphone.
I love that for you, bro. All right.
Yeah.
Good night,
All
everybody.
right. Good night, everybody. Good luck. Stay safe.
God bless you.